There he is.
Hey, man.
The fuck is it?
I don't know how to get rid of that now. I know.
That's great. What are you talking about? I mean, lose that jean vest, but the Bronson's great.
Jean vest, fucking awesome. This thing.
What's going on? So for people that don't know, you're on a filmic journey of your own.
Yes. Yeah. No. Just got in. Got settled. All good. I got them listed. How do you want to do these chronologically, or just pick them as we go?
Well, I've got them. Well, I've got them in a random order, but
I got them as
chronologically. You want to go? Whatever order you want to go in is pretty good with me.
Okay. Chronologically, Black Christmas is the first one. That was 1974. So that one kind of a good start off because it starts off kind of the Canadians, one of the very first slasher flicks. So
just leveling the video here. All right, cool. Black Christmas. So is that a real background, or is that a phony?
No, that's just one of those things, like you can make it blurry in the background. We were doing I was doing schooling, and I just people were putting funky shit up, so I just put that up in the background. So
I was gonna do one and then but make it the real wall, right?
Yeah, exactly. He said this took a shitload of work to do, man.
Blake was here for hours.
Yeah. So this one, Bob Clark's 1974. Yes. So this one is kind of the precursor to the slasher. So everyone kind of credits Friday the 13th with being one of the first slashers. That's 1981, 1980. Yep. This one actually has that one beat by 6-7 years. And if you want to go further back than that, you can look at films like Peeping Tom or Bay of Blood, stuff like that. But this, as far as the Canadian content, this one is kind of the big one. So this one, Bob Clark got the idea to do. It's basically about a house full of sorority women at Christmas time and a mass killer who's picking them off. So a pretty simple premise. You got a great cast here at the time. So you got Keir Dullea, you got John Saxon, you got Margot Kidder starring in it, you got Andrea Martin, Olivia Hussey. So you got a really great cast in this house. Art Hindle was also in this one as well.
Our friend Art Hindle, friend of the podcast.
Our friend Art Hindle, big call out to Art. So
Ringo my dingle.
So this one starts up. Of course, you've probably seen I don't know, have you seen both remakes? So there's one from 2006, I believe, and then there was one like a couple of years back, and they just progressively kind of get worse. The one from 2006 was a little more aggressive with the gore. Actually, upon watching it again, I didn't mind it as much. The first time I was kind of like, this wasn't in. What was cool about Black Christmas is the fact that this was inspired. The writer was inspired. Can't remember who wrote it now, but Bob Clark says the writer was inspired by, it was a Canadian guy that wrote it, by some Quebec murders that were going on. So people breaking in, but also based on, that famous babysitter urban legend, he's in the house, get out of the house. So a lot of people say that this is the very first one to do that. I'm not sure if that's necessarily true. I know I saw it on Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and I don't know if that is a precursor to this or how much earlier or later that is. If anybody wants to put a comment where that one came from, that would be great. I know, again, it's urban legend. So again, films that have that kind of premise, I'd be interested to read any comments with regards to that. But what the coolest part about this film is, this is the true psychopath. So this kind of thing where you kind of throw out the window that, well, who's doing it? Is it the butler doing it? Is it the friggin' Keir Dullea? Who is it? So in this film, and again, plug your ears if you don't want to hear a spoiler, if you haven't seen it, it's a random. So you never find out who actually does it. So you get kind of an idea, but then I'm not going to ruin it too much if you haven't seen it, the film. But then it kind of takes a step after that. But again, I remember my parents telling me about this one, going to the theater and seeing this one, and what a huge shock it was to them. They'd never seen anything like this before.
Well, I remember this one. I mean, for many reasons beyond film, but personally, must have been grade 5 or so. I handed in some kind of English or language arts, as they would call it back in the day, around Halloween story about the creep. And then I remember my teacher, Dale Taylor, saying, "Hey, man, I can't remember the name of the movie, but they did this thing where at the end, you didn't know who the creep was. And then he didn't say this, but after the credits, they did a pan up. And I remember, I'll just throw that into the story because, you know, away we go. And I remember even at the time, as he can't remember what it is, but I know he's talking about Black Christmas, right? And this is, I mean, Bob Clark, fans of the podcast, and I know we have 2 or 3 really hardcore ones, would know that I associate Bob Clark with Canada's greatest director, certainly pre-Cronenberg. And this is one of the great ones. I mean, he's
so Bob Clark, for those who don't know, directed things like Porky's and Christmas Story
and From the Hip.
From the Hip, yeah. So he's got some big notoriety.
Yeah, and there's some other in his
Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things.
Very cut short. Yes, we've done this one. Yeah, exactly. And then added to which, you know, if I call him Canada's Kubrick, and if he's got Keir Dullea in it, my lord. But yeah, he's got everybody in this. It's a fantastic movie.
I thought it was interesting. Keir Dullea filmed all of his scenes in 1 week.
I believe
and though it looks like he's interacting with people, he's not. In fact, he didn't even meet. There was who the hell did he not meet? There's a bunch of people. I don't think he even met. He only met. Didn't meet Art Hindle. He met John Saxon very briefly. And
I'd wager he had to have met
and Margot Kidder.
Yeah.
That was about it. Yeah. Oh, and Olivia Hussey, of course. Yes. And that was about it. So everybody else, it looks like he's interacting with them, but he's not. So he's got on the phone. So if you watch that, you can really kind of say that he's actually not doing the phone.
Well, and Phil Blesson to people that are both at the Vancouver Film School, and then people that are in production with movies. Last week when we were talking about Mean Guns, and friend of the podcast, Albert Pune, where he's filming 9 or 10 major actors that are never on set at the same time, right? Because, you know,
your budget's going to dictate. The biggest thing with film is what your budget is. So that's going to dictate all the things that are open to you. And again, the scenes, how come they cut that scene? How come they did it this way? How come they did it? 9 out of 10 times you can point to budget and say it's a budget concern.
Well, and not to make it about numbers, but back in 1974, this had a robust budget of about $600,000, which is Canadian American. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's amazing for the time. I mean, that's pretty good. So I mean, trying to get Keir Dullea and actors of that caliber, you know, where a lot of
5 years after, right? I mean,
Olivia Hussey. I mean, that's where you're getting your. I remember Bob.
5 years after Romeo and Juliet again.
Yes.
Like, I mean,
I think it was Bob Clark, one of the producers, came up to Olivia Hussey and said, "I'm a huge fan. I love your work." And she thought that they were referring to Romeo and Juliet. He said, "No, I've seen Black Christmas like 25 times.
I'm a big fan of Escape 2000." They said.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, pretty amazing stuff. But this is one of the grandfathers. If you have not seen this film, if you're a slasher fan, this is one of the essentials that you actually have to go out and see. Again, when you watch it years after everything else, it's like going back and watching Friday the 13th, the first one. It's pretty tame by today's standards. But when you go back and you watch and sit that this is the precursor, this is the daddy that kind of gave life to, or the mama that gave life to a lot of these and inspired a whole generation of filmmakers to go out and do this stuff. Make these kind of films. So I mean, you can't point at it. I'm sure Sean S. Cunningham will probably turn around and say, yes, this definitely was an influence.
Oh, there is no question. In fact, if you were to go to the special features on F13, and I'm sure John Carpenter would as well.
Yeah, I was trying to remember one of the cool things about there's a couple of cool things about this film that just kind of Nick Mancuso does the voice of the Creed.
He's the voice. Yeah,
he's the voice. And I never picked up on that. And I'm going through credits and I'm like, oh, Nick Mancuso's the voice. And actually they got him back to do, I haven't seen the 40th anniversary cut of this, but he comes back to do to do a Q&A with it. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Good voice actor. Despite being, you know, typical Hollywood type of person. The calls are inside the house.
The calls are coming from inside. Someone's
as far as the remakes, I remember the 2006 one. I certainly saw in at the Landmark in Brooks, Alberta. There, I remember the sound design on that being overtly repetitive, whereas just every kill was the same fucking cue. Just
pretty much. The cool part about and again, the hard part.
And 2019, I can't speak to that.
Yeah, The 2018 or 19 one, I can't speak to that one because I haven't seen it yet. But the 2006, the one big thing that distinguishes that one from this one is the fact that they're trying to put a real face to whoever this is and give you a real reason why this is happening. And of course, the obsession from that killer is eyeballs. So I remember that being a big gross out moment. But the problem is when you're doing a remake of something like this is that, when you're first watching it, you're not sure who's going to die. You have a pretty good idea, but now you're waiting. When people are taking over certain roles, you're waiting for certain people to die.
Yeah.
And Andrew actually in the remake, or I should say the remake, or what do you want to call it? Andrea Martin actually comes back and she plays the house mother in the, who is one of the sorority sisters in the original. She's the house mother in 6, which was kind of a cool little.
Yeah. Again, this is a fantastic cast. Whether you're catching it the day it came out or any time later, you just go, my Lord, you got to check it out. And again,
lighting design on this one I quite like too, because it's got such a great, it looks Canadian, of course, but it's got such a great lighting design because they've targeted at Christmas. Originally, it wasn't supposed to, it was going to be called something like Don't Go, or I want to say Get Out or something like that. I can't remember. It's a very short little word. And anyway, Bob Clark decided on Black Christmas.
Stop me.
Like the irony of doing this.
Stop me.
Stop me. That's what it was. Yeah, stop me. He liked the irony of Black Christmas, right? And again, it's kind of until Christmas Evil came out.
Because Bob Clark, overt racist.
Yes, exactly. Until Christmas Evil came out in 79, 80, there really hadn't been a movie that took part in Christmas. That one kind of pushed it a little more because now you got a Santa Claus killer. This is kind of one of the first. I mean, set the happiest time of the year. Who the hell sets a horror movie at Christmas time? You must be sick. So again, they got a lot of really brilliant angles going on this. Also, the using a lot of familiar tropes, like the person on the phone, the babysitter urban legend. Again, this stuff is on paper. I mean, you look at this and you go, how can this lose? Like, this is incredible stuff.
Yep. And early pitches were given to holy fuck, Betty Davis, Edmund O'Brien, like. This was kind of, passing around Hollywood. It wasn't just a little indie, right?
Well, 600,000 again for 1974 money is still pretty decent stuff.
Well, and again, for anybody,
especially a Canadian production,
anybody in the anybody in the film production business, as anybody should be, hand out $600,000, make 4.1 back.
And again, that was just getting
like a good deal for everybody.
So that's not even getting into the time. There were future returns for any kind of DVD, VHS, Betamax, so on and so forth. So again, that gold comes down the road. Well, I'm sure the marketing rights were incredible on this one. It'll make little action figures. Do what George Lucas did.
Well, I mean, you just think of back in that era, right, where you go, oh my God, we got literally the star of 2001 and Romeo and Juliet. What?
And we have John Saxon.
And at the time, who the fuck was he, right?
Enter the Dragon.
Yeah. It again, maybe, hot right off, right? Yeah. Like, thank God Bruce Lee died. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking for John Saxon, not Rob Brown.
Of course, Olivia Halban, de Hussey, sorry, not de Halban.
Well, it's Romeo and Juliet. Oh,
Romeo and Juliet. So anyway.
No, it's a great again, right? I mean, if you're talking about forgetting horror and we're talking about cheese and chalk and all that, trash and treasure. It's a quintessential Canadian film.
It is. One of the other things I really liked about this one for the day is that they tried to make this more of a psychological thriller than an actual horror movie, because the kills aren't really graphic for the most part. There's a couple of iconic ones, like the one up in the cabin. But anyway, a lot of the stuff, like even the stuff that they're hearing on the phone when he starts getting really graphic, a lot of those words I'd never heard before in a film. But a lot of the kills originally they were going to we're going to show them, but he thought, let's be a little more subtle with this and leave it up to the imagination of the viewer, which is always more powerful, because what scares you is definitely going to be scarier than anything that you see on the film. It's not going to be the same for everybody, and I love when filmmakers do that. Leave it to your imagination, but do it in such a way they've given you enough material to go, ooh, that's awful. That can be awful.
Absolutely.
So Black Christmas, 1974. We're going to move up here to, let's go to a little bit of Cronenberg here. We're going to do Rabid. So we actually have, this is the only Cronenberg on this list, but we have, if we do a part 2 to this, which I hope we're going to continue on there, we're going to do another Cronenberg, but Cronenberg is the godfather.
Say it right now, because then when we put these things to record, then we have to follow up on them. We should do a live watch along on the original Crimes of the Future.
Crimes of the Future, okay.
Because
Now that
he's
we've
got
said that,
he's got the update coming out, which is out of control, but the original is from 1970, and Lord knows I have it. So,
well, like I said, I had a lot of the stuff, like he came out with a bunch of them pretty close together within years of each other. So you've got Rabid, you've got Shivers, and you've got The Brood, all kind of coming out in the same time. A lot of the same actors, a lot of the same locations, all that.
Well,
We're going to talk about Rabid.
well, and he's a Canadian. I mean, he is literally.
He is the godfather of Canadian horror cinema.
As far as I'm concerned, he is literally Canada's greatest living director.
Yes, I would definitely strongly. I would
Barb, the
strongly
tragedy
agree
of
with
Bob
that.
Clark notwithstanding.
To me. So,
I mean, no, and as I'm sure you can appreciate as a Canadian filmmaker, Michael, as long as you don't put out movies in the same year that David Cronenberg or Adam McGowan do,
yeah,
in awards. Otherwise,
and you don't title them.
you better have your A game, because right, like, these guys are crazy.
Good stuff.
Rabid.
Basically, cool thing about this. So this is basically, in a lot of Cronenberg stuff, it's a lot of in and out, a lot of science stuff. So it's a lot of, he was obsessed with things coming out of people's bodies and penetrating and all that. So especially that block of 3 films are very similar. Shivers and Rabid are very, very similar.
Yes,
I remember seeing Samantha Edgar in The Brood when I was a kid, and I think it wanted to make me throw up. It was so out of anything that I'd ever seen before. And then, of course, let's not even talk about Videodrome, but Rabid basically is an early kind of a zombie film. It's a virus that people get that's alien transmitted. So Marilyn Chambers, Canada's own Marilyn Chambers, who was an adult film star at the time, who made the Behind the Green Door for the Mitchell brothers.
she was grown up.
Yeah,
she was not. Yeah, she was grown up.
She was growing up. She was not supposed to be, like, they originally wanted Sissy Spacek for this.
Yes.
But Ivan Reitman suggested, he goes, why don't you go with something a little edgier? Let's go with her. I'm sure she's available. So because she hadn't started filming her second one, The Resurrection of Eve or The Seduction of Eve or something like that. I'm not sure if she had done that one yet or not. But anyway, when you watch this one blows my mind. I've seen it about 5 or 6 times now, and it's a great watch there. I don't find any pacing problems with this film. Like, this one is a solid go. And again, when you're talking about the cast you have in here, pretty much all Canadian.
Yep.
All locations are Canadian, but a powerful science fiction horror. Like basically, I mean, it's exactly what you'd expect with something like this. But the little scenes that they go off, especially the scene, I remember being a kid, or not a kid, or teenager, and going, not the baby, man, not the baby. So some pretty horrific stuff, especially the one scene where the Rabid guys have the jackhammer and they go through the cart door. That scene bothered me and bothered me and bothered me. And they pulled that guy out and he's like hemorrhaging from the hip. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is savage. But
yeah, and again, for anybody that, again, there's early Cronenberg and there's mid Cronenberg, that's all very confusing because people think it's the same movie, right? This is the one, just, again.
Not with Lynn Lowry. Yeah.
Well, no, yeah. But just to be very clear about the specific body horror, David Cronenberg here is talking about the
under the arm.
I don't want to say it's a vampire because it's not a vampire, because
it's always alien-esque. It's never what you think. It's
a phallic. It's a stinger on.
Always phallic. Yes, always phallic.
That feeds on, they suck your blood through your nuts or other parts of your.
Yeah, they'll find something even cringier and queasier to do. It won't be a bite on the teeth. It won't be fangs coming out of the mouth. It'll be fangs coming.
No, because people will think of Cronenberg and they can think of fucking Jeff Goldblum, and they can think of even this movie's got an armpit bit where Lord knows James Woods goes in and pulls out a Betamax.
He pulls out a baby. This movie, the gamble that they took going with the adult stars. So this longest time was the highest grossing Canadian film of all time.
Yep.
So I'm not sure if that
Again.
record still stands today, but when it came out, I mean, this one literally put Cronenberg on the map. And again, when you watch it, and it's not hard to figure out why. It's again, it's far from being a perfect movie, but man, this one is solid entertainment from the time it starts to the time the credits roll at the very end.
And just to keep people that are actually watching, you know, tune to tune, we were just talking about Bob Clark making more. Bob Clark's, Clark's was a Canadian film production, but then he had other money. This is a purely Canadian production here we're talking.
Yeah. And one of the
It
things
wins
that works
when it wins the box office and the record for years after Black Christmas, it's because this counts as a Canadian production. Clark's does not, right?
Yeah. One of the
talking about today.
One of the things that's so cool about this Canadian horror from this time, the way that he films it, is how raw everything looks and how realistic everything looks. There's that sense that even though, you know, we're talking about a woman with a parasite in her that friggin' comes out and feasts on people, everything out that seems to be going on is so realistic and so the way it's handled is in such a way where you believe it. You've bought in hook, line, and sinker, which I really love that. And again, a lot of the scenes, you're not talking about a lot of airbrushing here. I mean, the filming and all that is extremely raw.
Well, and to put it in perspective, this is going 40 years back, 45 years back now. It grossed $100,000 in 10 days just in Montreal.
Yeah, the Quebec film market is an interesting film market, I must say.
Well, you know what I mean? It'd be $10,000 a day. I mean, you know, you're getting into
in 1977 money.
Yeah, but you're getting into manageable amounts even for, you know, low end.
Well, that one was remade. I believe the D'Souza sisters just remade it in
Our friends, yeah. Again, there's been few.
I'm trying to look it up because I
yeah, that's the Soska sisters about 4 years ago.
Yeah, D'Souza.
Since we met them, I mean, it's again. There's been few projects where I thought, my God, they're really ahead of something here, and that's not because it's Cronenberg, because who gives a shit. But when they said they were going to do this, I thought, my God, what a great pairing!
What a great thing to. I don't know. Have you seen it? Because I haven't seen it.
No, and we know. And again, I'm gonna drop the name here. But we know somebody that's involved in this one.
Yeah,
that isn't the twins.
Yeah, the sisters.
You know, whether it's you know, actresses that we know or whatnot, but it's a great. I mean, it's just so pre-pandemic. And
history repeats itself.
Tapping on a Canadian institution. Fantastic.
Yeah. And again, so the best stories are the simplest. I mean, this is a very simple story. That they've exploited milk for the most horror possible. So again, this is one of the building blocks of not just Canadian horror, but horror in general. An important bit. So if you haven't seen Rabid, of the three, I mean, Rabid is still my favorite. Shivers is a great film as well. Again, they start to repeat on themselves with a lot of the theme, the theme that's going on, a lot of the imagery. The Brood is a more of a different movie, but I seem to be pulling parts out of it. Videodrome even borrows a lot from it again, or you're just pulling out of all the films. I would say that Rabid was the one that Cronenberg was really trying to make. That's just a guess on my part, but again, nothing but respect for the man and love for what he's made. So
yeah, easily not, you know, again, we've been going on about Canada's greatest filmmaker, but clearly Canada's elder statesman without question.
What's funny
too, checking them out. They're easily found out online. The original Crimes of the Future. He's got some really, really great early ones called Stereo. Another one called Transfer.
Yeah,
they're fantastic films. I just remember them from 25 years ago, being, you know, doing the film study shit and going, man, this guy's got his act together. This
he's got quite, and not just the stuff that you're seeing now. I mean, he hasn't really been acting. I'm trying to remember the last thing that I've seen that he's done.
Oh my Lord.
Crash.
Well, I mean, that's where I'm in university going, this guy's going places, and he's releasing Crash at the same time, right? Maps to the Stars. He did a fantastic movie called Cosmopolis.
Oh, that's right. That's his. Yeah.
And then he's done